She left her wedding ring on the bathroom counter. Not in a drawer. Not hidden. Not even near the soap where it might seem accidental. No, dead center. Perfectly placed. Like she wanted me to see it. Like it was some kind of statement. At first, I just stood there staring at it. Still fogged from the shower steam. My toothbrush hanging from my mouth like I'd forgotten how to use it. And then she leaned in from the hallway and said it. Don't wait up. Those 3 words. Like she was going to the store. Like she was grabbing a coffee. Not like she was going to sleep with someone else. Not like she was detonating everything we built for 12 years. I didn't say anything. Not then. I nodded like I understood. And maybe I did. She wore lipstick I'd never seen before. A dress that didn't belong to our shared life. Perfume that smelled like someone else's fantasy. I listened to her heels walk down our front steps. Listened harder than I ever had. She paused at the door, then left. Just like that. And here's the part that messes with me. I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. Because that wasn't her first date. It was just the first one she named out loud. She wanted a reaction. A meltdown. A breakdown. She didn't get one. She got silence. Because she didn't know that I already knew. That 2 days earlier, I'd found everything. The texts. The hotel receipts. The photos she forgot to delete. She thought she held the knife. But I'd already taken the blade out weeks ago. Now she was just holding the handle. And she had no idea that the moment she came back through that door, I'd say something that would end her. Not violently. Not dramatically. Just a sentence. 12 words, to be exact. 12 words I had rehearsed in my head for nights. Words she'd never forget. Because she thought this was her power move. But I'm the one who rewrote the ending. She came back just after midnight. I heard the key before I saw her. That familiar metallic click, the slow turn in the lock. Like she was debating whether to even come in. Maybe she expected me to be asleep. Maybe she hoped I wouldn't be here at all. Either way, she took her time. Her heels tapped softly against the hardwood like she was trying not to wake a house she'd already abandoned. I didn't move. I was sitting in the dark, no lights, no sound, just the glow from the aquarium in the corner, the only thing in the room still alive in that moment. Even the fish seemed to freeze when she walked in, like they could feel it too, the weight of what was coming. She noticed me right away, of course, paused in the doorway, clutched her purse like it held something worth protecting. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. I let the silence do the work. She slowly stepped in, eyes adjusting to the low light. Her makeup was still perfect. That annoyed me more than it should have. I wanted to see some sign of what she did. Regret, guilt, anything human. But no. She looked clean. Undisturbed. Smug, even. "You're still up?" she finally said, with a voice so casual, it made my skin crawl. And that's when I stood. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just walked toward her with calm, steady steps, stopped a few feet away, and said the 12 words I had rehearsed every single night since the day I discovered the first lie. "You should tell your sister what you said about her husband last week." I watched it hit her like a lightning bolt to the spine. Her lips parted. No words came out. Just a breath. Shaky. Shallow. The purse dropped. Her shoulders tensed. She blinked. Once, twice. Like maybe she could rewind the moment if she focused hard enough. I didn't give her time to think. I continued, just as calm, voice low. "You really thought I wouldn't find your messages to Savannah? You said he's dull, but rich. That you'd keep him around until you could switch rings. That's what you said, right?" She stepped back. "You said I was boring. Safe. A starter husband. And you laughed about it. I saw the screenshots. I saw everything." Now her mouth opened, and the excuses came flooding in, like clockwork. She tried to deny it first, then pivoted to blaming me. And then, when all that failed, she went for the oldest trick in the book, crying. But it was too late. Because what she didn't know, what she still didn't know, was that Savannah had already talked to me. I sent her the screenshots. I told her everything. Turns out Trina had been getting a little too comfortable on both ends of the family tree. And now, both sides knew. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was exposure. And the best part? I never raised my voice. Never called her names. I didn't have to. The silence after my words did all the screaming for me. She backed toward the door like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. Good. Because I didn't recognize the woman in front of me either. Whatever she was pretending to be, wife, partner, soulmate, it died long before that night. And now, all she could do was stand there, caught in the trap she built for herself, realizing way too late that the game she thought she was playing had turned into something else entirely. Something real. Something final. The thing about setting off a bomb is you never get to choose where all the shrapnel lands. I didn't sleep that night. I laid on the couch in my work hoodie, staring at the ceiling while she stayed locked in our bedroom. I could hear her pacing, opening drawers, breathing too loudly like she was having some kind of anxiety attack, which, I'll admit, gave me a sliver of satisfaction. Just a sliver. That sounds cold, I know. But when you've been quietly bleeding for months and someone else finally starts to feel the pain they caused, it's not vengeance. It's equilibrium. At 7:13 a.m., the first phone call came. I was still awake, sipping cold coffee, watching the sun creep across the floorboards like it didn't want to witness any of this. Her phone buzzed violently across the counter. Savannah. I didn't touch it. Just watched it light up with that judgmental white glow. It rang 3 times, stopped, and rang again. Then came the text. What the hell is wrong with you? She didn't come out to see it. She already knew. 10 minutes later, a second name popped up. Trina's mom. That one didn't call, just texted. Short. Blunt. Fix this. Now. I smiled at that. Her mom always liked to pretend she didn't pick favorites. But if you knew her tone like I did, that wasn't concern. That was shame. Embarrassment. Disgust wrapped in motherly formality. I took that as my cue to start packing. No, I wasn't leaving the house. I paid for it, every damn brick and wire. I was packing her things. And not neatly. I wasn't violent, I didn't tear things apart, but I made it clear. This wasn't temporary. I folded with purpose, bagged with resolve, zipped and boxed with the coldness of a man done pretending he didn't see the red flags. All of them. When she finally came out of the bedroom, hair a mess, mascara faintly smeared like she'd slept in regret, she saw the bags and stopped cold. She didn't speak at first, just stared at the suitcase like it had insulted her. You're overreacting, she finally said, barely above a whisper. I didn't answer. I just kept going. She tried again, louder this time. You don't get to just throw me out of my life like this. That's when I turned, slowly, and looked her in the eyes for the first time since last night. Your life? I asked. The one where you lie to my face, text my sister like I'm some charity case, and audition replacement husbands while still sleeping in my bed? She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. No, you don't get to talk today. Today is mine. You've had plenty of days. There was a pause, long and ugly. She glanced toward her phone, then toward the front door, like she was calculating escape routes. But there weren't any. Not this time. Not anymore. And then she said something I'll never forget. It wasn't the words. It was the way she said it. Like she thought she could still flip the script. I made a mistake. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Just a clinical, hollow, unemotional statement. Like she was a kid who spilled juice on the rug and now expected it to be mopped up and moved on from. So I nodded, slow and steady, then said something that silenced her completely. No, Trina. A mistake is forgetting your keys. What you did was a decision. Repeated. Strategic. And I'm simply giving you the consequence. Her hands clenched. For a second, I thought she'd throw something. But all she did was bite her lip and storm into the bedroom, again. That was the last time she stood in our hallway like she still owned it. She didn't know it yet, but more was coming. Way more. Because the messages Savannah sent me? They weren't the only thing I'd saved. The family hadn't seen the photos yet. Her job hadn't either. But they would. Not out of pettiness. Out of principle. You don't get to set fire to someone's life and then ask for water when yours starts to burn. The first picture went out at 8:41 a.m. I didn't plan it to be so early, but I figured, if people were sipping their morning coffee, they might as well have something real to choke on. I wasn't cruel about it. No captions. No nasty commentary. Just 3 screenshots. One of the hotel confirmation email she forwarded to her friend. One of the blurry photo from the elevator mirror, Trina and her landscaping fantasy standing too close for it to be work-related. And one of the texts she sent Savannah saying, and I quote, I swear, Dale's like a puppy. He'd forgive me if I slept with his brother. LOL. I posted them quietly in our extended family group chat. The one that had birthdays and baby photos and casserole recipes and the occasional awkward political meme from her uncle. You know, that chat. The sacred digital living room where everyone pretends we're all still happy and united and not silently judging each other. I posted the images. Then I turned off notifications. Walked away, took the trash out, sat in the driveway, and let the autumn breeze hit me in the face like a slap I didn't know I needed. By the time I came back inside, the group chat had over 47 unread messages. By lunch, it passed 200. Trina didn't say a word. She sat at the kitchen table like a corpse, scrolling through her phone in slow motion, blinking too often. I knew that look. That wasn't guilt. That was damage control. She wasn't sorry. She was calculating. Watching the world she built with lies start to peel at the corners. The most satisfying message wasn't even from my side of the family. It was from her cousin Ally, of all people. The one who used to roll her eyes every time I talked about budgets or fixed something instead of replacing it. She never liked me much, thought I was too blue-collar, whatever that means from someone whose biggest life achievement is running a yoga blog with 6 readers. But now, Ally messaged me directly, no emoji, no fluff. You didn't deserve that. She's been a wrecking ball for years. You just had the bad luck of standing still. I read that 3 times. I didn't reply. I just stared at it and felt something strange, not pride, not relief, just quiet validation. Like someone had finally seen the wreckage and said, yeah, that's real. That actually happened to you. Meanwhile, Trina got up and walked out the front door like it was burning behind her. I didn't ask where she was going. I didn't care. Her car peeled off so fast she knocked over our trash bin. I let it sit there sideways for hours. It felt symbolic. Later that afternoon, her brother called me. Now, understand something. Her brother Malcolm and I have never been close. The man treats silence like a currency and has the emotional range of a brick. But when he called, his voice didn't sound flat. It sounded shaky. He asked me if it was true. I told him yes. Told him I had more if he needed proof. There was a pause, then a deep breath, and then he apologized. Sincerely. He said he was sorry for what his sister did. He said he always thought she was reckless, but he never imagined she'd pull something this low. And then he said something I didn't expect. You're not the only one she's done this to. I froze. What do you mean? I asked. Malcolm hesitated. I could hear him pacing on the other end. Then, slowly, like each word cost him something, he said. There was a guy before you, and someone else after. Trina's been like this for a long time. You just stayed longer than the rest of us expected. The call ended soon after that, but those words hung in the air like a slow leak of poison. It wasn't just me. I wasn't the first wreck. I was just the longest suffering one. Somehow, that hurt more than anything, because it meant I'd been warned, not with words, but with behavior, with patterns, with the kind of silence that tells a louder story than any shout ever could. And I missed it, or ignored it. But not anymore. She came home just after sunset, and I knew she was going to lie before she even opened her mouth. I was in the garage, sitting on an old stool beside the workbench, polishing a wrench I wasn't actually planning to use. Just needed something in my hands. Something real. I wasn't fixing anything, not anymore. I'd spent years trying to repair a marriage that was never actually broken. It was just fake, painted to look whole from the outside, but hollowed out from the inside. Like those movie set buildings that fall over when you touch them. She stepped into the doorway without knocking, like she still had the right. Her face was blotchy, makeup smeared, eyes sunken from crying or lying or maybe both. She didn't speak at first, just hovered like a ghost, arms crossed, pretending she had something worth defending. I guess everyone knows now, she said flatly, with a voice like a paper cut. Your little stunt with the group chat, real classy Dale. I didn't answer. I just set the wrench down, turned to face her, and waited. You'd be surprised how loud silence can be when someone's trying to dig their way out of a grave they dug for themselves. She stepped closer, her voice rising. You embarrassed me. You humiliated me in front of my family. Do you even know what you've done to my reputation? I let out a quiet breath, not a sigh, not dramatic, just tired, bone-deep tired. And then I said, your reputation died the moment you tried to trade husbands like used furniture. That stopped her, just for a moment, but not long enough. She rolled her eyes and laughed, not because anything was funny, but because she thought mockery could still win her ground. That laugh she used to shut people down, the one that made waiters uncomfortable and turned apologies into punchlines. You think this makes you look strong? She spat. You think all of this makes you the victim? No, I replied. I know I'm the fool. But not anymore. She started pacing then, wearing a groove into the concrete with every bitter step. She said I blindsided her, that I could have talked to her first, that I made everything worse than it really was, that the hotel room was just drinks and the texts were taken out of context, and that she didn't actually sleep with anyone because technically nothing happened. That word again, technically. She always did love to live in that slimy little space between what's true and what's punishable, between betrayal and deniability. She didn't stab you in the chest. She just nudged the knife in your back a little deeper every day and acted surprised when you finally turned around bleeding. You told your sister I was a charity case, I said, voice flat. You laughed about me behind my back. You called me a placeholder. You made plans to leave me before you ever had the guts to say anything to my face. And you think I'm the one who should have handled this privately? She said nothing. She knew the words were true. I stood up then, slowly, not to threaten, just to put us eye to eye. I'm not here to argue, I said. I'm not here to negotiate or cry or beg. I'm here to tell you this. I've spoken to a lawyer. The papers are being drawn. You'll get them by the end of the week. You won't contest it, because if you do, I'll bring everything to court. Every text, every receipt, every name. So clean out the guest room. That's your space now. I'll stay in the master until this is over. After that, you can go back to being whoever you were before me. Her mouth opened, then closed. This was the part where she usually reached into that bag of tricks, the fake tears, the sudden vulnerability, the soft apologies designed to trap me in one more cycle. But not this time. Because this time, I wasn't performing strength. I had it. This time, I didn't need revenge. I had the truth. And that was enough. I was nearly done believing the worst had already happened. That's the trick betrayal plays on you. It makes you think the moment you find out is the bottom. That once the truth is out, the air clears, and everything else is just paperwork and dust. But that's not how it works. Sometimes, what breaks you isn't the impact. It's what keeps falling afterward. It happened 3 days after I told her the divorce papers were coming. We hadn't spoken much since. The house was a museum of silence. She stayed in the guest room, barely emerging except to take long showers and even longer phone calls. Always hushed, always behind closed doors. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need to. We were in the quiet countdown now, the part where everything's dead but still technically breathing. That morning, I walked into the laundry room, looking for a clean pair of work socks, and saw it, sitting on top of the dryer. A phone I didn't recognize. Not hers. Not mine. Just there. No case. No lock screen. No password. It was as if she wanted me to find it, or forgot in a moment of panic that secrets eventually surface. I stared at it for a full minute before I picked it up. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. It was past that point now, numb curiosity, not panic. Like a fireman walking through ash, just checking to see what still stands. I opened the Messages app, and what I read changed everything. This wasn't just about her and some landscaping fantasy anymore. This phone had a full trail of conversations with a name I didn't recognize, T. Griffin. And they weren't romantic. Not flirty. Not sexual. They were calculated. Cold. Strategic. She'd been planning more than just an affair. She was preparing a way out. One message read, "He doesn't even know I took the money. He thinks it went toward the property tax. Pathetic." Another, "Once the loan clears, I'll be gone. Tell your guy I'll pay him back in full within 60 days. And then, the worst one, I'll string him along a little longer. Just need to keep him passive until it's clean." That word, passive, hit me like a hammer. I wasn't a husband to her. I was a temporary obstruction. And the money? I ran to the hall closet, pulled out the property tax folder I hadn't touched since last year, opened the envelope I gave her to mail, $4,700 in a cashier's check. I remembered writing it, remembered the tears in her eyes when she said she'd take care of it because I already do too much. The envelope was empty. No receipt. No confirmation. I checked the county website. The tax was never paid. She hadn't just been cheating with another man. She'd been stealing from me, lying about the house we built, lying about our future while making financial backdoors like she was sneaking out of a burning building she set herself. I sat down on the floor, phone still in my hand, trying to understand what kind of person lives this way, and for how long she'd been pretending to be something she wasn't. That's when the garage door opened. She walked in with a drink in her hand, sunglasses on indoors, like nothing had happened. And I held up the second phone. I didn't say a word. Her face drained faster than I thought humanly possible. The glass in her hand trembled, For once, she didn't have a smirk, or a line, or a laugh. For once, she was silent. And for the first time since all of this began, I felt something stronger than pain. I felt control. She opened her mouth to speak, and I simply stood up, walked past her, and said over my shoulder, "Your lawyer's going to have a hell of a time with this." She didn't follow me. And for once, I didn't care what she did next. I didn't touch the phone again for 6 hours. I didn't have to. Just holding it up in front of her had been enough to rattle her like I'd detonated a mine under her feet. She didn't speak, didn't chase after me, didn't ask what I was going to do with it. And that silence, that heavy, telling silence, was all the confirmation I needed. She knew she was caught, not in some messy, emotional cheating scandal, but in something worse. Something traceable, calculated, illegal. It was never about heartbreak anymore. This was about theft, fraud, lies written in ink, not lipstick. I sat in the bedroom with the door closed, lights off, just listening to the house breathe. Every step she took echoed. She was walking softer now, avoiding eye contact. The arrogance had evaporated. No more sharp comments, no more deflective insults. Now she was careful, like someone waiting for a verdict, and I was in no rush to give it. Around midnight, when the house had sunk into total stillness, I turned the second phone back on and began screen recording. Every message, every number, every transaction, every reference to the loan, to the cash, to keeping him clueless. I emailed everything to myself, encrypted and backed up. Then I sent it all to my lawyer with one line in the subject. "This changes the tone of the divorce." The next morning, I called the county office and confirmed it again. The property taxes had not only gone unpaid, they were flagged for a lien warning. We were weeks away from penalties and legal notices, and she hadn't said a word. She just took the money and ran. Only she hadn't run fast enough. I knew where I had to go next. Trina had mentioned the name T. Griffin multiple times in the hidden messages. It sounded made up, like a fake name you'd use to check into a motel, but I found a matching profile connected to a rental property listing she'd bookmarked on our shared iPad months earlier. A man named Trevor Griffin, licensed contractor, divorced twice, currently renting a waterfront condo with flexible occupancy options. I didn't reach out to him. I didn't need to. I printed out a few screenshots and handed them to my attorney. She raised her eyebrows, flipped through the pages slowly, and said, "Do you want to press charges now or wait until discovery?" That word, discovery, never sounded so satisfying. By the third day, Trina had stopped pretending. She knew something was coming, but not what or when. She stayed inside, barely showered, jumped every time the doorbell rang. I didn't taunt her. I didn't speak unless absolutely necessary. That, more than anything, drove her crazy. Because Trina wasn't built for silence. She thrived on chaos, on talking her way out of corners, on turning every consequence into a misunderstanding. But now there was no one left to lie to. The group chat had gone cold. Her sister had blocked her. Her cousin ally changed her profile picture to a quote that said, "The worst wounds are the ones from family." She tried once, just once, to flip the script. She walked into the kitchen, slowly, and said, "You know, if you go public with this, people will think it's pathetic, that you're weak, that you couldn't handle it privately like a man." I didn't even look up from my coffee. "Let them think whatever they want," I said. "You've been handling things privately for a long time. Look how that turned out." She left the room without another word. And that was the moment it hit her. There was no audience left to clap for her. No narrative to spin. No sympathy to steal. The exit plan she spent months building had become a cage, and I was the one holding the key. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to destroy her life. But because I was finally done protecting someone who'd never hesitated to hurt me. Not just once, but over and over again, in ways I hadn't even finished discovering yet. It all ended on a Tuesday. Quietly. No screaming. No cops. No smashed dishes or broken glass. Just a suitcase on the porch, a signed envelope in her hand, and the thud of her car door as she drove away for the last time. She didn't say goodbye, and I didn't need one. By the time she left, the damage was done, but so was the healing. The lawyer had everything. The second phone was now in the hands of someone far more qualified to dissect it than me. The judge had reviewed the evidence and fast-tracked the split undergrounds that made it very clear who was walking away clean and who wasn't. She tried one last thing the day before it was finalized. walked into the living room with tearful eyes and a trembling voice. But this time, I saw through it. It wasn't remorse. It was fear. Fear of having to build a new life without a safety net, without someone paying the mortgage, without someone she could lie to and still rely on. She started to speak, something about not being herself lately. I held up my hand and said, "Trina, we're not doing that anymore. You don't get to rewrite the ending just because you don't like how the truth reads." She didn't argue, and when she left, it wasn't cinematic. She didn't collapse into my arms. There was no dramatic last look, just the low growl of her engine fading into the distance, and the soft click of a door that would never open for her again. You'd think I felt empty afterward. Maybe that's what people expect. But I didn't. I stood there in the hallway, in the same house that used to feel like a trap, and for the first time in years, I breathed, fully, deeply, like my lungs remembered what real air tasted like. I spent the next few weeks rebuilding, not out of desperation, but choice. I fixed the garage light she always said wasn't worth bothering with, repainted the kitchen a warm gray, donated every single thing that reminded me of her, even the espresso machine she never let me use. I bought a cheap one, learned how to make lattes badly, and laughed every time they came out crooked, because they were mine. I started seeing my friends again, the real ones, the ones I had quietly drifted from because I was too busy covering for her absence, too embarrassed to admit how far things had fallen apart. They didn't ask too many questions, just handed me a beer, turned on the game, and let me sit with the silence without needing to explain it. Then something happened I never expected. Savannah, my sister, invited me to her daughter's recital. I hadn't been to one in years. I always had excuses. Too tired from work. Trina's not feeling well. We'll catch the next one. But this time I went. And after the show, while everyone was hugging and eating cupcakes in the school gym, a woman tapped me on the shoulder. Said she was friends with Savannah. Said she'd heard a little about what I went through and wanted to tell me something. She looked me in the eye and said, "It's not weak to hurt, but it's brave to heal." Then she handed me a napkin with her number. I didn't call her right away. I wasn't ready, but I smiled all the way home. Because for the first time in years, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something I got to write, on my own terms. Not as a placeholder, not as a backup plan, but as a man who finally remembered his own worth. And let me tell you something, peace never made this much noise.